do with big data and cloud computing in general. And yeah, that's the title for what we're gonna see today. It's selling shovels in the AI gold rush. So what does it mean? Why gold rush? Why shovels? There must be a lot of questions. So I'll just take you on a little bit of a journey out of my own research, and let's see if it resonates with your thinking as well. I hear a lot of AI buzz all around. There's AI, generative AI, regenerative AI, and LLMs, and Gen AI, and Llama, and whatever. It's just the zoo, right? But how do I make money? How can I get rich with this AI thing? What do I need to do? How do I make a career out of it? What can I build? What can I sell? There's so many questions. So let's begin with a little bit of a history. California gold rush. So people from all over the country, all over the US, went to California to mine gold and get rich. That's the gold rush anyway, right? But it's not an easy thing to do. Really harsh environment, unpunishing climate. There were mosquitoes, there were germs. People would get like diseases, and it was really hard to mine any gold out there. But people would still go and toil with a dream of actually striking gold and getting rich. Even if they found some gold, they were at a higher chance of getting robbed or shot, killed for the gold. So it was very hard for them to even return with any gold that they happened to mine. There was one man who also joined the gold rush called Levi Strauss. He just went there, hopes of getting rich. And then he realized it's bloody hard work. He did not want to get his hands dirty, but he saw an opportunity. He realized that the clothes wouldn't last long because it was such a punishing environment, right? Water and sand and stone and rubble. And so he came up with his own idea. He took a pair of regular trousers or pants, whatever, and reinforced them with leather straps, steel rivets, and he made a sturdier version of those work pants or like work overalls. And he patented his company. So just look at the logo there. Two horses trying to tear that pair of jeans apart, and I mean that was his USP. You are doing hard work, you should wear these. And like they say, the rest is history. We love those Levi's jeans. He invented it. And this man made a fortune without getting his hands dirty even once. He never caught any diseases. He never got shot. He never got robbed, but he got rich. Just like him, there were so many other people who made a fortune out of the gold rush by just selling supplies, hats, pickaxes, baskets, sieve, anything, shovels. So that's where the phrase comes from. In a gold rush, don't just go for the gold. Sell shovels, you'll get richer. Today, we are looking at a new kind of gold rush, right? All these massive firms are battling each other out to reign victory, to claim their stake in this AI world. They all want to win this war. But there's only one true winner. Can you guess who it is? There's Google, OpenAI, there's so many other players out there, but there's only one clear winner. Spot on. Jensen Huang, NVIDIA. Exactly. No, it doesn't matter who you are, Google or Microsoft or Radar, whoever you are. You need these chips to do your AI training. So this guy, the smart guy in the black leather jacket, is the Levi Strauss of today. He's not getting his hands dirty in the gold rush. He's not building any AI himself. But nobody can build AI without what he makes. In fact, it's a very interesting story. He used to make AI-powered self-driving chips for Tesla. Yeah. And then Tesla decided to make their own chips. And that's when Jensen Huang realized, okay, Tesla is doing self-driving. Every other automaker wants to do self-driving themselves. Nobody else knows how to make chips. I'm the only one who knows how to make self-driving chips. So ditch Tesla. Let me just make self-driving chips. And then he improved his self-driving chips, and he said, "Oh, might as well make chips for AI for ML training." Right. So he's the clear winner. How can we get involved now? We are not Jensen Huang. We don't work at NVIDIA. We don't make chips. How do we get involved? So if you come to think of it, AI is actually, it's not magic or anything. It's just another program that there's input on the left side. There's some magic program in the middle, and then there's output on the right hand side. Data in, data out. We humans use those outputs and we generate more inputs, right? And those inputs again go into model training, and that gets fed into your ML training. The same outputs are used by more AI, which also generate more inputs. Okay. So this creates a very interesting phenomenon. If you see, those are two concentric loops. So it creates a very interesting feedback pattern. If your input data is good, or if your outputs are accurate, your further model training and accuracy just goes through the roof pretty quickly. But if your input is bad, or if your output is not accurate, it gets really bad pretty quickly. So it's a bit of a problem there. Good or bad, it just gets accelerated. So there's three areas to focus on. First is the quality of input data. What exactly are we feeding our ML models? How accurate are the results, predictions or recommendations, whatever it may be? And then the overall governance of the whole process, from input to output and feedback and back. Okay. So I believe these are the three areas where all our shovels are hiding. Most people think about AI as just model training and fun stuff there, but you really can't build anything unless it is accurate, consistent, and it's compliant. So I believe these are the three areas where we should focus more. We'll see why. So let's say hypothetically back in the 1500s, we had access to AI, and we asked it, draw us a picture of Earth. This is what it would draw. The Earth is flat, and the Earth is the center of the solar system. Because your AI is only as good as the data you feed it in, right? So suddenly all these concepts of data quality, data consistency, how complete is your data set, how dependable it is, how reliable it is, all these concepts become super important. Because you really can't achieve anything useful unless you have good input data. Okay. Now, this AI event, it's really catching up pace. So everyone's doing AI, everyone's building their own models, which means there's going to be an explosion of data sets, both input as well as output. So how are we going to maintain quality and data consistency and completeness, all of that at such a rapid scale when everything's moving so fast? So that's going to be the real challenge. So gone are the days of batch files and DBT and just do this pipeline, copy that pipeline, move this data, check the file count. How many tables does your data? You can't do that. It's not sustainable. You just have to embrace streaming data, and we need to take care of data quality, consistency, completeness, all of that at cloud scale, real time. That's going to be the first consideration. You really can't do anything at the scale the world needs at that batch file speed. Second is accuracy. Ever faced this problem when the microphone gets too close to the loudspeaker and then you hear that loud screech? That's actually the feedback loop, because the speaker and the microphone, they are just rallying each other. That's exactly what happens when your AI outputs are not good enough and you feed them back as input. Bad output leads to even worse outputs pretty fast. So that's when all these concepts become important. How do you fact check your outputs? Is it correct? Is it accurate? Everyone that's doing AI out there, everyone that's putting out AI products has been facing this problem. There's always so many issues with the recommendations we get, right? So how do we fact check anything? If you build an AI model that recommends you good stock options or good property to buy or invest in, you got to make sure it's true, because if you give financial advice to someone and if they lose a lot of money, they're gonna come back at you and sue you. So how do you make sure that you're fact checking at scale? Accountability. Who takes accountability? It's fun to build an AI model and say that, okay, my model can do this. Can you really sell it? Like, do you really think that hundreds of thousands of people can actually use your AI model and you won't get into any trouble? Of course, if 500,000 people use your AI model, at least one person will run into some problem, and that one person will hold you accountable. But you may not even be accountable. Maybe you source the data from somewhere else. So how do you attribute the ownership of who gets to rectify it? Reconciliation. It has to reconcile any recommendations you make. It must be consistent. It must be in line with reality. You can't just make an outlandish recommendation and just hope that it sticks and nobody finds out. So testing and all these things become really important. Just building some ML model is not enough. It has to be fit for purpose, and we need to verify this at scale. Again, if you're piping your data like a fire hose, and you're getting outputs at a streaming rate, you also need to do all this testing and verification in real time. That's going to be the next challenge. This one is one of my favorites, but often the most boring aspect. You've come across all these terms like regulatory reporting and governance and audit and all the government stuff, APRA reports, ASIC reports. It's the stuff we don't enjoy, right? We run away from it. Nobody wants to do all these compliance reports. But I believe this is going to be the next big thing. We can't really build anything and sell in this market unless it complies with the law, right? You can't really sell anything to consumers, because if somebody's paying you for your services, you got to be held accountable for that. So think of all the conflicts that arise in the marketplace. You buy a faulty product, you need to be able to return it. You need a replacement. It has to be fixable. It has to be fixed in a reasonable amount of time. Now think about the complexities that you can expect in the ML world. You build your model out of a lot of data. You source the data from a lot of different places. One of those data sources probably acquired the data in an unethical way. So you don't know that. Now you've built your ML model, you're selling recommendations to people, and then suddenly there's an inquiry, there's a royal commission, and you're grilled in the court. What do you do about it? You need to be compliant from the get-go, correct? So suddenly all these otherwise boring topics become super important. Were you really happy if your data was lost in the Optus breach or Medibank or any other breaches? You weren't, right? If there was an opportunity for you to sue Optus and get compensation, you would absolutely jump on it. You'll join a class action lawsuit. Didn't you build an ML model last night and put it on the internet? What if people are using it and they come back for you? Thankfully, it's not a business you're running. You just did it for hobby. But if you were running a business, that was a real possibility. Okay, so all these concepts become super important. And you need to do this at scale. Maintain an audit of all your input data, of all your processing, of all your outcomes. Maintain a change log, basically all the metadata. So if you put all these things together, I believe this is where our shovels are in the AI race. It's not about just building some ML model. You saw some new tool that came up online. You checked some YouTube videos. You tried it out, and yeah, congratulations. You built an ML model that creates images, but you're not going to be able to sell it. You're not going to be able to turn it into business. That's not going to make you rich. It'll only cost you in cloud computing costs. So in order to succeed, in order to really run a business, you need to focus on these things. The last 4 bubbles there, the green ones, brand new concepts. I spent more time researching on those than putting together the entire presentation. Now, what are those? Very new concepts. There's not too much available about these in the internet, but I'll still try and share as much as I could find. Actually, I was blown away by these concepts and they make sense to me. First, data fingerprinting. Now, you might be tempted to just look at the bullet points on the left and say, this is data lineage. Where does my data come from? No, it's not. It's lineage plus plus. It's more than lineage. Look at the diagram. That diagram kind of signifies the contact tracing for COVID in a way. It's not about where the data came from, but it's the entire journey the data has taken. Every single place this data set has been, all the influences and experiences this data set has gone through. How many hops it has made, how directly or indirectly have you received this? How many stops, or what was the dwell time? Did this data wait or stall somewhere? How much processing this particular data set has gone through? Proximity is also important. You might pick up that pack of chips in the supermarket and then read, there's a disclaimer. This chips was made in a facility that also processes fish and seafood. Right? So now you must be wondering, I'm allergic to seafood. Could I get into trouble by eating these chips? But at least you've been warned. So now you know. So that's proximity. Like, we don't know. We don't know whether the chips has any traces of seafood, but there could be. So use your caution. The same concept might apply to data. This data set was processed at Cambridge Analytica, which got into trouble for charges with the US government. Use your caution whether you want to use it or not. Right? Temporality. That's really important. Think about someone you want to hire in your company. You want to do a background check. Right? So temporality is a little bit about that. What's the background history? Wherever this data has been, whichever company or whichever country this data has been processed in, while this data was there, what else happened that I should be aware of? Really interesting concept. Doesn't exist, but it's going to be a big deal soon. A good example is your passport tracking. How do you do background check? You find out from your passport, entry and exit stamps, like which countries have you been, what was your purpose of visit, how long did you stay in any country. Even if you had nothing to do with blacklisted countries for, let's say, bird flu or COVID, maybe you're a foreign national, but if you still transition through a country which was blacklisted, it may be important for the tracking. So think of it that way, the whole trajectory of data. Did anyone know of this concept, or is it brand new to you as well? I didn't know about it, not in this level of detail.
Hollywood made a couple of films about that. Like Enemy of the State with Will Smith. They basically track down all his purchases, associations, whatever. This is like well before AI. So basically, even governments use that now.
That was a late 90s movie. Yeah, good.
Yeah,
exactly.
Basically, they, what's the term back then? Data mining.
Yeah.
They basically look at your digital footprint, the whole spectrum.
Yeah, good. So now we'll need to do it. First, it was just the CIA and NSA, but now we will need to do it because we are dealing with data at that scale, and what we are building is actually used by like millions of people. Next one is also super interesting, data watermarking. It's more about the whole, how this data set came into being. So the first one was its trajectory, but the second one is its genesis, its creation. Who created it? Who modified it? How has someone modified it? How many times this data set has been modified? How original it is? Is it authentic? By the time I get this data set, how much of the originality or rawness does it really have? Has it been morphed? Or is it completely different? Is it synthetic? How original is it? So what you see on the diagram there is the maintenance log of an aircraft. Before we put you on that Jetstar flight or any aircraft, a detailed log is checked to make sure that this aircraft has been maintained well, that all its spare parts are functional, tested, certified for flight. This is airworthy. And the full log of the wing got a replacement in Brisbane hangar, the engine got a replacement in the Melbourne hangar, or whatever it may be. The whole log of maintenance of that aircraft. So think of it as the encumbrance certificate. If you buy a car, you want to know who owned that car before you and how they looked after the car, right? If you know that an ex-statesman or some MP used the car for 3 years and then you buy it off pickle auctions, yeah, fine. That government official probably drove only 10 kilometers a day and a driver drove it, so car is probably good. But if you're buying a sports car from 1960s, you actually wanna know who owned it and how did they maintain it. Same thing applies to data. Another example is to think of it this way. How heavily processed is the food? We sometimes care about, sometimes, right? Only sometimes we care about how heavily processed the food is. If you eat that gummy bear, how much of apple are you really getting? You might be wondering. So it's important to find out. Okay. Compliance certification, usually a boring topic, but I believe it's going to be super relevant and important going forward. So the diagram illustrates how money laundering happens, how fake money or black money is introduced into the system and how it circulates around, and then how it becomes next to impossible to find out. So the whole anti-money laundering and counter-terror financing, AML, CTF, it's a big deal. If you're working with any financial institution, you need to comply. Same concept applies to data as well. At least it will become relevant and important going forward. The data set that you're using, is it certified? Is it cleared for consumption? Is it free? Is it clean of any biases or any sanctions? Maybe the data set you're using came from a country which has sanctions imposed on it and you're not supposed to use that data. Or maybe you paid for a particular data set, it's expired, it's invalidated, you can't use it now. Or maybe there was a data set which was created or procured unethically. Maybe there was a data breach and that data breach resulted in the data set that you're using today. How would you know? You would need to have some sort of attribution. So that's why it's important. Does anyone remember or know about this McDonald's burger fiasco in Australia? Who knows about it? Who wants to talk about it? I see some people smiling and nodding their heads, but nobody wants to talk about it. Right. So a few years ago, I think maybe a decade ago or so, McDonald's said, ask us anything. We love our customers. We love our Aussie customers. Ask us anything. And now, like Australians are really, they're very particular about where does the meat or the beef comes from. So a lot of Australians ask McDonald's, what sort of beef do you use in your burger? Because there's so many rumors on the internet. And McDonald's said, we use 100% Aussie beef. Most people were satisfied, but one person was not satisfied. So he kept on probing, what do you mean 100% Aussie beef? McDonald's said, that's exactly what it is. We use 100% Aussie beef. And this person went on digging and he then found out that McDonald's buys beef from a company that's called 100% Aussie. Okay. But that company buys beef from some African, South American countries. And the African beef was absolutely rubbish. A lot of it was horse meat. And a lot of those cows were either stolen or, not really certified for consumption, diseased or whatever. So it's clever marketing. It's clever wording. How do you know the data you're using is 100% Australian? If you're required to abide by laws of the land, data sovereignty, your data should not leave Aussie soil. You bought this data set from someone. How do you know they have complied? So all the certification becomes important, including the outputs you generate out of your ML. This was my favorite one. See, compliance is not boring, it's fun. Heritage is again fun. What you see is basically the nutritional declaration of, could be anything. I think it's butter or whatever, chips, butter, anything you buy. You need to be told what its composition is, how nutritionally rich it is, or how much preservatives or added colors, or whatever it contains, composition. This concept will apply to data going forward. How much of the data is original, authentic? How much of it is synthetic? How much of it is AI generated? Do you know the difference between real data and AI generated data? What if your model generates videos, and if those videos are deep fakes, basically? What if those meddle with elections and cause a government to fail, and then there's some inquiry? How do you know that the data you used was fabricated or maleficent? How do you know it's genuine? How do you know it's bona fide? So all these points on the left-hand side become important. Any disclosures that go with the data, any biases or influence it has had. For example, let's say you work for a political party. You're not allowed to use the data processed by a company which holds really strong political views for your opponent. Let's say you bought data from a company that only sells data, but that company makes hefty donations to a particular political party on which there are corruption charges or, I don't know, anti-money laundering charges or whatever it may be. So think of all the sorts of troubles we can get into just by data acquisition or using data. It's risky. A good example is this. Maybe you only want to buy cosmetics that are cruelty-free. How do you know? How can you really trust when they say this wasn't tested on animals? You have the right. We all have the rights to go file. That there's a form, you have to fill it out and you have to submit it, and the company has to provide you the details of how they perform testing or how they procure their where they procure their ingredients from. So it's a matter of disclosure. Nobody's gonna sell their secret sauce, so don't file a petition to get KFC secret sauce. You're not gonna get it, but at least they will be able to answer your question to a great extent, right? So we need to be able to do that with our data. If we generate recommendations out of our AI model, let's say it is weather prediction or stock price prediction or airfare prediction. I want to travel to, let's say, Brazil in September this year. And if an AI model predicts that these particular dates are the best dates to fly because in September, this particular airline is likely to have low fares. How did you arrive at that? How did you conclude that? What sort of data did you use? So we may need to be, ready to provide all this disclosure. So basically, all in all, if we put all these concepts together, to me, it looks like this whole AI revolution is basically just a call to build a better data platform. It has nothing to do with AI. AI is just another battery operated toy. The real business is in selling batteries. It's just another type of printer. The real business is selling toners. So this AI is just an excuse to build a better data platform. It's all metadata, it's all governance, it's all controls, audit, history, version, schema, it's all of that. So just build a better data platform. Having said that, now try and compare this to something more tangible. Think of this data platform as the Reserve Bank. What does the Reserve Bank do? It says you can trust in our monetary system. You can trust in a monetary system. We have complete accountability of how we run, the economy of this country. There is full transparency into our monetary practices. And if you get into any trouble with, money or if we get duped or cheated, uh, we can take action. Like if you are cheated by a company, we can do royal like banking commissions and whatever. So basically, the Reserve Bank is guaranteeing, it's instilling trust in the monetary system. So what exactly is the commodity? It's the currency. Now, if you try and compare this with data, the data platform is actually a marketplace, and the data itself is the commodity. Data will be created, sold, exchanged, and the marketplace for that exchange is the data platform, which we of course call it as data mesh these days. So with this lens on, data is not just data. It's not just some CSV file, or it's not just some table in a crappy database. It's actually a commodity. That changes the perspective. Now you might be wondering, how do I get involved? All this is cool, it's fun, but what do I do? Maybe I'm a Scrum Master, or maybe I'm a mobile app developer. I don't do any of this data thing. I don't know how to build data platforms. I understand the concepts, but I don't have the skills to build it. Maybe I'm a business analyst. How do I get involved? Well, let's take a step back. Let's look at the history of treasure. Earlier, it used to be gold, right? Countries are invaded for gold. Then it was the silk and spices, right? The old Silk Route, spice trade. Then oil. Wars were fought for oil, crude oil. Countries were invaded. I'm not going to name, but you all know the petrodollar. And then dot-com boom happened, late 90s. It was the internet. Everyone needed a website. Even if you sold hot dogs, you had to have myhotdog.com, and some venture capitalist would fund you. We are still seeing the semiconductor, the silicon war going on. All this embargoes and sanctions imposed on Huawei, Xiaomi, whatever, and 5G, 6G, all this, it's still going on. And the whole AI treasure era is just now started. So if you look at this history, it's only the commodity that has changed. The stuff which holds value. I mean, I have not listed everything, rubber, diamonds, there's all sorts of commodities. But the problems always remain the same. So it's the new treasure, but always the old problems. Okay, we live in a capitalistic world. So even if your treasure, even if your commodity, yesterday it was crude oil, today it is data, these problems will always be there. Anything to do with law and compliance, ethics, equality, governance, data privacy, all of these will always apply, which means regardless of your role, whatever you do, Scrum Master, Project Manager, BA, or tester, whoever you are, whatever your role is, if you focus on these areas, we have a very secure future. Because this AI gold rush, it's nothing. It's only a need for a better data platform, and we'll need all these things in the data platform. Okay. Now, what if you want to take a user journey, for an example? Like, how does it really transpire into what we do? Let's take a look at how the user behavior has been changing. Because if we are in the software world, we are building software for someone, and that someone is a user, we have to build for the user. So let's look at the trend these days. I don't know how many of you used to go to Blockbuster and look for movies, and it used to be a weekend trip. At least for me, it was a lot of fun. I miss it really these days, going to a music library. I don't know, music shops, listen to new songs, new releases, and buy those discs. Anyway, these days we don't do that. We just watch whatever is recommended to us, right? We don't think, we don't go browse search, we just watch. Something tells us watch this and we just do it. People used to really take cooking seriously. They used to join cooking groups, exchange recipes, experiment with different cooking styles. They would really love cooking, and they would come up with new ways of cooking. These days, we love to watch MasterChef, but most probably while eating the food that we ordered off menu log, and we probably didn't even pick it. Someone else picked it for us. We were just recommended a weekly plan, and we know we don't read news anymore. Also, we don't watch any long form research videos, and also we don't do any search or research anymore. We just ask for answers, and we just get those answers. So, in an age where we are systematically killing research and wisdom, right? Am I wrong? I believe we are killing research and wisdom. We don't want to search. We don't want to research. We don't want to read that long log, the Facebook style, read the last line. We don't want to really acquire knowledge. Who wants to become a visa agent? Let me just go to that agent and get my visa. Who wants to be a real estate expert? Let me just ask that, buyer's agent. Or we really don't want to put that effort into learning anything and gaining that deep knowledge. We just want instant answers, quick. We don't want to put any effort. We want it served to us. Right? The most important thing is we don't want to search. We want it recommended to us. So in this age, what do you think? Where do these things fit? This is hard. This is very hard. It takes years and years, probably decades of research, right? Think about that as the train schedules of Sydney trains. Like we know the timetables suck, but if that's the dashboard, how much time do you think you would need to really understand the domain knowledge of how trains are scheduled and planned and how to optimize the train timetable? Or if that was the uh, profit and loss dashboard of, let's say, Bunnings, how much time do you think you would need to really understand the business domain and recommend ways to improve sales and make more revenue? It's very hard. It's very difficult. It takes decades of learning, research, and wisdom, which we don't like these days. So I believe the future will be conversational. I don't believe that we are going to go and see dashboards, play with filters, drill down into reports, understand those figures, go cross check, read, understand, talk to BAs, learn the business domain. I don't think we're going to do that. I think we'll just pull out a phone and, hey, what are the projected losses for this quarter? It tells us the figure, draw it on a line graph, drawn, send it to my boss. Okay, I'm off to Bali, done job. So I believe that that's the future, which means the data platform that we're talking about, just build a better data platform. I believe we need to build data platform for machines, because so far we've built our data platforms for humans. How do I run this query? Star schema, snowflake schema, model this, naming convention. AI model doesn't care how you name it. It's going to find out correlation. So I believe we need to start thinking about how do we build data models for, not for humans, because humans are not going to research and learn anything. Machines. How would I make it easier for AI models to really process my database, understand my database schema, so that when I do prompt engineering, not data engineering, forget about dbt and files. When I ask my database or BigQuery or whatever it may, when I ask, give me the top 5 most popular items that are selling this week, how does it understand my data model, prompt engineering? How does it create a query and give me the results? So I believe we need to start thinking about how do we build data models for machines for conversations, not for a pretty bar graph or a line graph. No humans are going to read it. We are only going to ask questions. So that's what I learned from these two visionaries that led to my research. Of course, it was a lot of reading. I couldn't have gained this wisdom by not doing research. I couldn't have just asked Gemini or ChatGPT to, oh, what's the future of AI? No, I had to do my own research. It took days of research. That's what I learned. I'm not sure if you guys agree, but I would be keen to hear your thoughts. That brings us to the end of the journey. Of course, you are in Mantle Group. We build all these things. We do everything related to data analytics, BI, ML, AI. If that's what you enjoy, I enjoy data. So if you are keen to getting involved, just ask us. Any other questions or any suggestions, any tips? Whenever I'm watching on YouTube about the AI, I get all these ads, like make $5,000 from AI. So did you see how is that part? Oh, well, I definitely spent and lost quite a lot of money back in the 90s when I would get ads saying, "Oh, make quick money advertising on online." Because Google AdSense was not a thing. Selling ads online was a big business. That's exactly what's happening today. AI is so new, most people don't know how to do it. They think others are doing it. So they believe even they can do it. Even if they don't know, they claim to be doing it. So it's easy to fool people. It's the harsh truth, actually. Yeah, so don't jump into that. Any questions or any other thoughts before I sign off? Why do you think it's hard to convince like these AI or pioneer big and garbage in, garbage out? I think it's like common sense from how we stuff data analysis. But now people are just throwing that it's the hot market people are supposed to die. Oh, well, it's subjective, right? A lot of times you need to show progress to keep your share prices high. Because if you're a publicly traded company, you need to show quarterly profits, revenue to maintain trust in your shareholders. So you need to keep pumping some results out. You need to create hype in the market. You need to show hope. You need to show progress. And that brings in more funding and revenue into your company, and then you invest it. So a lot of the work that big companies do, there's an old saying in Hindi, it loosely translates into English as the elephant has two sets of teeth. The one set is for show off and the other set is for actual chewing. So all these big companies, they have one set of projects which are strategic and the other set of projects which is just marketing. So a lot of times what you see as cutting edge, bleeding edge, tip of the spear, edge of the knife and all of that, that's usually marketing to pump the hype. What's the data? 80% of data is controlled by big corporations. Do you think there any way they can help up? We just established that data is commodity. Yeah. Would you give up your gold? No. You would. There's no motivation to share with other people. Yeah, it's a gray area. The data that big companies have is generated by people, regular people or other companies. So it's not the data that they actually created, but it's the data that they acquired. When people just throw away their data, we just give our data away, right? We say, I agree to any contract that comes up on our phone, which basically we are signing off our data. If something is free, we are paying with our data and we are the product. So that we've given it up anyway. So now whoever claims it, it's theirs. But a lot of times, especially in the European countries, you have GDPR. So you can actually ask your data to be removed. That's when complications arise. But now they have banking, some big banks like share. Yeah. You also perceive the privacy. Yeah. So I don't know if in the future some folks can like the big corporate give some valuable data. Yeah, maybe they'll sanitize some data, anonymize it, de-identify it, and then it becomes fit for public use, non-confidential. Yes. I think we're out of time. Thank you.